Chapter 40. I returned to India. Gratefully I was inhaling the blessed air of India. Our boat Rajputna docked on August 22, 1935, in the huge harbor of Bombay. Even this, my first day off the ship, was a foretaste of the year ahead, 12 months of ceaseless activity. Friends had gathered to dock with garlands and greetings. Soon at our suite in the Taj Mahal Hotel, there was a stream of reporters and photographers. Bombay was a city new to me. I found it energetically modern, with many innovations from the West. Palms line the spacious boulevards. Magnificent state structures vie for interest with ancient temples. Very little time was given to sightseeing, however. I was impatient, eager to see my beloved Guru and other dear ones. Consigning the Ford to a baggage car, our party was soon speeding eastward by train toward Calcutta. Our arrival at Howrah Station found such an immense crowd assembled to greet us that for a while we were unable to dismount from the train. The young Maharaja of Kazamabazar and my brother Bishnu headed the reception committee. I was unprepared for the warmth and magnitude of our welcome. Preceded by a line of automobiles and motorcycles, and amidst the joyous sound of drums and conch shells, Miss Bletch, Mr. Wright, and myself, flower garland from head to foot, drove slowly to my father's home. My aged parent embraced me as one returning from the dead. Long we gazed on each other, speechless with joy. Brothers and sisters, uncles, aunts, and cousins, students and friends of years long past were grouped around me, not a dry eye among us. Passed now into the archives of memory, the scene of loving reunion vividly endures, unforgettable in my heart. As for my meeting with Sri Yukteswar, words fail me. Let the following description from my secretary suffice. Today, filled with highest anticipation, I drove Yogananda from Calcutta to Serampore. Mr. Wright recorded in his travel diary. We passed by quaint shops, one of them the favorite eating haunt of Yogananda during his college days, and finally entered a narrow walled lane. A sudden left turn, and there before us towered a simple but inspiring two-story ashram, its Spanish-style balcony jutting from the upper floor. The pervasive impression was that of a peaceful solitude. In grave humility, I walked behind Yogananda into the courtyard within the hermitage walls. Hearts beating fast, we proceeded up some old cement steps, trod no doubt by myriads of truth-seekers. The tension grew keener and keener as on we strode. Before us, near the head of the stairs, quietly appeared the Great One, Swami Sri Yukteswar, standing in the noble pose of a sage. My heart heaved and swelled as I felt myself blessed by the privilege of being in a sublime presence. Tears blurred my eager sight when Yogananda dropped to his knees and with bowed head offered his soul's gratitude and greeting, touching with his hands his Guru's feet, and then in humble obeisance his own head. He rose then and was embraced on both sides of the bosom by Sri Yukteswar. No words passed at the beginning, but the most intense feeling was expressed in the mute phrases of the soul. How their eyes sparkled and were fired with the warmth of renewed soul union. A tender vibration surged through the quiet patio, and even the sun eluded the clouds to add a sudden blaze of glory. On bended knee before the Master I gave my own unexpected love and thanks, touching his feet, calloused by time and service, and receiving his blessing. I stood then and faced two beautiful deep eyes, smoldering with introspection, yet radiant with joy. We entered his sitting room, whose whole side opened to the outer balcony first seen from the street. The Master braced himself against the worn davenport, sitting on a covered mattress on the cement floor. Yogananda and I sat near the Guru's feet, with orange-colored pillows to lean against and ease our positions on the straw mat. I tried and tried to penetrate the Bengali conversation between the two Swamijis for English. I discovered is null and void when they are together, although Swamiji Maharaj, as the great Guru is called by others, can and often does speak it. But I perceived the saintliness of the Great One through his heart-warming smile and twinkling eyes. One quality easily discernible in his merry, serious conversation is a decided positiveness in statement, the mark of a wise man, who knows he knows, because he knows God. His great wisdom, strength of purpose, and determination are apparent in every way. Studying him reverently from time to time, I noted that he is of large athletic stature, hardened by the trials and sacrifice of renunciation. His poise is majestic. A decidedly sloping forehead, as if seeking the heavens, dominates his divine countenance. He has a rather large and homely nose, with which he amuses himself in idle moments, flipping and wriggling it with his fingers like a child. His powerful dark eyes are haloed by an ethereal blue ring. His hair, parted in the middle, begins as silver and changes to streaks of silvery gold and silvery black, ending in ringlets on his shoulder. His beard and mustache are scant or thinned out, yet seem to enhance his features, and like his character are deep and light at the same time. He has a jovial and rollicking laugh which comes from deep in his chest, causing him to shake and quiver throughout his body, very cheerful and sincere. His face and stature are striking in their power, as are his muscular fingers. He moves with a dignified tread and erect posture. He was clad simply in the common dhoti and shirt, both once dyed a strong ochre color, but now a faded orange. Glancing about, I observed that his rather dilapidated room suggested the owner's non-attachment to material comfort. The weather-stained white walls of the long chamber were streaked with fading blue plaster. At one end of the room hung a picture of Larimasha, garlanded in simple devotion. There was also an old picture showing Yogananda as he arrived in Boston, standing with the other delegates to the Congress of Religion. I noted a quaint concurrence of modernity and antiquation. A huge cut-glass candlelight chandelier was covered with cobwebs through disuse, and on the wall was a bright, up-to-date calendar. The whole room emanated a fragrance of peace and calmness. Beyond the balcony I could see coconut trees towering over the hermitage in silent protection. It is interesting to observe that the master was merely to clasp his hands together, and before finishing, he is served or attended by some small disciple. Incidentally, I am much attracted to one of them, a thin lad named Parufa, with long black hair to his shoulder, a most penetrating pair of sparkling black eyes, and a heavenly smile. His eyes twinkle as the corner of his mouth rises, like the star in a crescent moon appearing at twilight. Swami Sri Yukteswar's joy is obviously intense at the return of his product, and he seems to be somewhat inquisitive about the product's product. However, predominance of the wisdom aspect in the Great One's nature hinders his outward expression of feeling. Yogananda presented himself with some gifts as in the custom when the disciple returns to his guru. We sat down later to a simple but well-cooked meal. All the dishes were vegetable and rice combinations. Sri Yukteswarji was pleased at my use of a number of Indian customs, finger-eating, for example. After several hours of flying Bengali phrases and the exchange of warm smiles and joyful glances, we paid obeisance at his feet, bid adieu with a pranam, and are departed from Calcutta with an everlasting memory of a sacred meeting and greeting. Although I write chiefly of my external impressions of him, yet I always conscious of a true basis of his saintness, spiritual glory. I felt his power and shall carry that feeling as my divine blessing. From America, Europe, and Palestine I had brought many presents for Sri Yukteswar. He received them smilingly, but without remark. For my own use, I had bought in Germany a combination umbrella cane. In India, I decided to give the cane to Master. This gift I appreciate indeed. My Guru's eyes were turned on me with affectionate understanding as he made the unwonted comment. From all the presents, it was the cane that he singled out to display to visitors. Master, please permit me to get a new carpet for the sitting room. I had noticed that Sri Yukteswar's tiger skin was placed over a torn rug. Do so if it pleases you. My Guru's voice was not enthusiastic. Behold, my tiger mat is nice and clean. I am monarch in my own little kingdom. Beyond it is a vast world, interested only in externals. As he uttered these words, I felt the years roll back. Once again, I am a young disciple, purified in the daily fires of chastisement. As soon as I could tear myself away from Serampore and Calcutta, I set out with Mr. Wright for Ranchi. What a welcome there, a veritable ovation. Tears stood in my eyes as I embraced the selfless teachers who had kept the banners of the school flying during my 15-year absence. The bright faces and happy smiles of the residential and day students were ample testimony to the worth of their many-sided school and yoga training. Yet alas, the Ranchi institution was in dire financial difficulties. Sir Manindra Chandra Nandi, the old Maharaj whose Kazimbar Palace had been converted into the central school building and who had made many princely donations, was now dead. Many free, benevolent features of the school were now seriously endangered for lack of sufficient public support. I had not spent years in America without learning some of its practical wisdom, its undaunted spirit before obstacles. For 1 week I remained in Ranchi, wrestling with critical problems. Then came interviews in Calcutta with prominent leaders and educators, a long talk with the young Maharaj of Kazimbar, a financial appeal to my father, and lo, the shaky foundations of Ranchi began to be righted. Many donations, including one huge check, arrived in the nick of time from my American students. Within a few months after my arrival in India, I had the joy of seeing the Ranchi school legally incorporated. My lifelong dream of a permanently endowed yoga educational center stood fulfilled. That vision had guided me in the humble beginnings in 1917 with a group of 7 boys. In the decade since 1935, Ranchi has enlarged its scope far beyond the boys' school. Widespread humanitarian activities are now carried on there in the Shyama Charan Lahiri Mahasha mission. The school, or Yogata Satsanga Brahmachara Vidyalaya, conducts outdoor classes in grammar and high school subjects. The residential students and day scholars also receive vocational training of some kind. The boys themselves regulate most of their activities through autonomous committees. Very early in my career as an educator, I discovered that boys who impishly delight in outwitting a teacher will cheerfully accept disciplinary rules that are set up by their fellow students. Never a model pupil myself, I have a ready sympathy for all boyish pranks and problems. Sports and games are encouraged. The fields resound with hockey and football practice. Ranchi students often win the cup at competitive events. The outdoor gymnasium is known far and wide. Muscle recharging through will is the Yogata feature, mental direction of life energy to any part of the body. The boys are also taught asanas, postures, sword and lathi, stick play, and jujitsu. The Yogata health exhibitions at the Ranchi Vidyalaya have been attended by thousands. Instruction in primary subjects is given in Hindi to the Kols, Santals, and Mundas, aboriginal tribes of the province. Classes for girls only have been organized in nearby villages. The unique feature at Ranchi is the initiation to Kriya Yoga. The boys daily practice their spiritual exercise, engage in Gita chanting, and are taught by precepts and example the virtues of simplicity, self-sacrifice, honor, and truth. Evil is pointed out to them as being that which produces misery. Good is those actions which result in true happiness. Evil may be compared to poisoned honey, tempting but laden with death. Overcoming restlessness of body and mind by concentration techniques has achieved astonishing results. It is no novelty at Ranchi to see an appealing little figure, aged 9 or 10 years, sitting for an hour or more in an unbroken poise, the unwinking gaze directed to the spiritual eye. Often the picture of these Ranchi students has returned to my mind, as I observed collegians over the world who hardly able to sit still through one class period. Ranchi lies 2,000 feet above sea level. The climate is mild and equable. The 25-acre site, by a large bathing pond, includes one of the finest orchards in India, 500 fruit tree mangoes, guava, lychee, jackfruit, date. The boys grow their own vegetables and spin at their own chakras. A guest home is hospitably open for Western visitors. The Ranchi Library contains numerous magazines and about 1,000 volumes in English and Bengali. Donations from the West and the East. There is a collection of the scriptures of the world. A well-classified museum displays archaeological, geological, and anthropological exhibits, trophies to a great extent, of my wanderings over the Lord's varied earth. The charitable hospital and dispensary of the Larry Mahasha Mission, with many outdoor branches in distant villages, has already ministered to 150,000 of India's poor. The Ranchi students are trained in first aid and have given praiseworthy service to their province at tragic times of flood or famine. In the orchard stands a Shiva temple with a statue of the Blessed Master Larry Mahasha. Daily prayers and scripture classes are held in the garden under the mango bowers. Branch high schools with the residential and yoga features of Ranchi have been opened and are now flourishing. They are the Yogata Satsanga Vidyapith School for Boys and Lakshmanpur in Bihir at the Yogata Satsanga High School in Hermitage at Amnagachik in Midnapur. A stately Yogata math was dedicated in 1939 at Dakshinwar, directly on the Ganges. Only a few miles north of Calcutta, the new Hermitage affords a haven of peace for city dwellers. Suitable accommodations are available for Western guests, and particularly for those seekers who are intensely dedicating their life to spiritual realization. The activities of the Yogata Math include a fortnightly mailing of self-realization fellowship teachings to students in various parts of India. It is needless to say that all these educational and humanitarian activities have required the self-sacrificing service and devotion of many teachers and workers. I do not list their names here because they are so numerous, but in my heart such one has a lustrous niche. Inspired by the ideals of Larry Mahasha, these teachers have abandoned promising worldly goals to serve humbly, to give greatly. Mr. Wright formed many fast friendships with Ranchi boys. Clad in a simple dhoti, he lived for a while among them. At Ranchi, Calcutta, Serampore, everywhere he went, my secretary, who has a vivid gift of description, hauled out his travel diary to record his adventures. One evening I asked him a question. "Dick, what is your impression of India?" "Peace," he said thoughtfully. "The racial aura is peace." End of chapter.